the Kraken have essentially been the highlight lately, just because they're the only team that's been playing lately, and they're doing well. They're doing well. We have some highs and some lows from this past week. Why don't we get into our past week of games, Bel, as Seattle closed out a 3-game homestand to lead us into the All-Star break?
Yeah, more highs and lows here. On the 25th against the Vancouver Canucks, there was a win, 6-1. Our player of the game there was forward Jared McCann with 1 goal, 2 assists, 3.6 shots, and 4 on goal. Our second player of the game was forward Oliver Bjorkstrand with 2 goals, 2 points, and 4 shots on goal. And I believe that is the game that he was flirting with that Hattie there. So moving on to the 27th versus the Calgary Flames, unfortunate loss, 5-2. Our player of the game there was John Hayden with 1 goal, 1 point, 1 shot on goal, and his first NHL goal of the season. On the 28th versus the Columbus Blue Jackets, another win, 3-1. Player of the game there was forward Alex Wenberg with 1 goal, 1 point, 7 face-off wins, 2 takeaways, 4 shots in his 600th career NHL game. And we have a second player of the game here for that game too, Philip Grubauer, with 25 save attempts, 24 saves, and a .960 save percentage. You want to dive right into our players of the week, or do you have comments here for our 3 games?
Nah, let's go into it, man. I mean, this is fun. This is a lot of fun, right? I know Cuddy's been out to some of these games. He's been talking about them in the last few weeks. This hockey team's been a lot of fun, right? I know for some, this is a brand new sport. We look at it. It's hard to get into. I know Everett Fitz, you and I in the Black Media Matter studio here, we discussed how it is tough to get into the sport. Money wise, it's a predominantly white male sport. It's tough to get into, but with the fast pace of the game and the winning ability of this team, I mean, just follow us and we'll keep you updated. I promise you that. So, you look at these things. You mentioned Philip Grubauer and that player of the game there. He's playing well. Martin Jones has been playing pretty solidly as well throughout the course of the year. Some people have questioned the goaltending ability. Dave Haxtell said, we don't listen to the news. We quietly have thought that our goaltenders have been solid all season. You mentioned, where was it here? Oh, he's my player of the game, so I don't know if I just want to give that away. But you've gotten contributions from up and down the forward line. We look at John Hayden. He got called up from Coachella Valley due to some injuries around the roster. We'll get to injuries in a little bit in the later part of the segment, but there's, again, contributions up and down the line. And that's been one of the main stories of this team is its depth. Its forwards depth has been incredible. Obviously, we look at the ability of this offense, the way that they've been able to score goals. It's been incredible, so this team's a lot of fun. They're in first place in the Pacific Division, no tiebreakers needed. And that's pretty impressive to think about where they are at the All-Star break. This is not at all where I thought this team would be heading into this season. Again, I talk about it all the time. General manager Ron Francis had a 3 to 5 year plan for this team to make the playoffs. And I thought that was reasonable, right? It's an expansion team. You're new to things. Vegas's expansion draft made things a lot harder for your expansion draft because Vegas kind of manipulated the system and was able to get good trades out of it. Seattle was not, as a result of that. So, it's a lot of fun to see this team. It's great. There are a lot of great characters on it. Players who, whether they're number 1 overall draft picks like Matty Beniers, they're high caliber signings like Andrei Burakovsky, or they're guys who got claimed off of waivers a few weeks ago that were essentially casted away, like Eeli Tolvanen, who I went with for my player of the week here. So Tolvanen, over the last week, 3 goals, 3 points, 8 shots, 1 hit and 1 block. He's riding a 3-game goal streak. Again, the waiver pickup from Nashville has been very critical to this team's success since joining them and since getting into game shape and getting on the ice for Seattle. Just a wicked shot, but his defensive performance as well has been really big. We wrote about that. I wrote about it in my player piece on Tolvanen. That just sort of started out as just being how he's been acclimated to Seattle, how he's getting used to Seattle, and it went into sort of his defensive background and who he was as a player. I'll sum it up a little bit, but you should go to the blog page of Converge or our website on the blog spot, and just a little bit. It's not too far down. It's on Eeli Tolvanen. In Nashville, he was told a bunch of things. Hey, you should play the bumper role on the power play, or we need you to score goals. He wasn't given clear direction. He was told to be more focused on his defensive game. As a result, that's why he is the defensive player that he is now. But he was told all these things by the Nashville front office, and he was never given any sort of consistency or direction. And so he talked about it in a quote after the last game. He said, earlier in the year, hockey wasn't very fun. And then he says, since coming here, it's been a lot of fun. So, you know, you like to hear stuff like that. And it's just awesome because he's a guy that contributes. He was a little bit shy when I went to talk to him. I don't blame him. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And, you know, with the 3-game goal streak, it just made the most sense for me. And since learning about his story, I've just, you know, you pull for the guy when you learn about these guys' story. So, kind of the same way I felt about Philip Grubauer here, who was your player of the week. Why don't you tell me a little bit about that decision?
Yeah, just like you said, you pull for the guy. And I feel like I needed to be on this guy's corner because it feels like a lot of the time people are not. So 24 saves on 25 attempts and a 960 save percentage. Like, I think that speaks for itself. And I just think that it needs to quiet all the doubters because Grubauer gets a whole lot of criticism, and most of the time, I would say that it's not even his fault. So just had to give him his flowers and show him some love because I feel like he needs a lot more love.
Bel, we don't need to go into the photos again like we did a few weeks ago, right? We're not going to do that.
No.
I got a comment on one of our blogs. It was after the Colorado game that said I was feeding his ego. Now, I don't get paid by Philip Grubauer. I don't know the guy personally, but it's not that hard. As long as you're not a box score watcher, or just a casual. That's why we're here, right? That's why we're here to break these things down for you, go into the games. That's why in the articles, I don't just give you a full summary of the box score. That's not the point of these things, right? We
Yeah.
dive into the main storylines of the game. And usually that's not the case, right? I will give you, you know, in Grubauer's last season in Colorado, he was a Vezina Trophy caliber winning goaltender, right? He played in front of some great talent in Colorado. That's why they won the Stanley Cup last year, right? I mean, Cale Makar is incredible. They've got a great team in there, right? He'd come in here with a new team, uh, with some bad defensemen, and then expansion team, right? They don't have that chemistry like the defensemen in Colorado did. It's just a whole new. How would you like it, Bell, if I took you right now from your scenario and I dropped you in, like, let's say Kentucky, and I expect you to do well in your new situation right away? It's unreasonable. And
Yeah.
just even now this year, since injury, he's been incredible. In the month of January, has a 934 save percentage, which is tops in the league, top 10 in the league, I believe. You get the point. It's just ridiculous to think about, just to blame the goaltender. That's not how it works. If you're a fan of hockey or soccer and you just blame the goaltender and you say he's just supposed to save all the attempts, it's just ridiculous. Again, it's not why we're here. You know, if I wanted to be here and look at the game against the Kings earlier in the season, right, where it was 9-8, I just look at the box score. I said, wow, the goaltender sucked. Wasn't necessarily the case. You know, again, that's not why we're here. It's just not that hard. I don't try to. There's no agenda here. You know, even Martin Jones has had great games. He was a guy that's supposed to be just a replacement for Chris Drieger until Chris Drieger got healthy, and now he's got the third most shutouts in the league. He's one of the highest winning goaltenders in the league this season. You know, wins aren't a goalie stat though. Anyway, I just find that comment ridiculous. And again, that's why we're here, right? You know, we don't just come here to tell you the box score of these games, right? We're going to tell you what happened, and we're going to tell you the scores. That's not why we're here though. So anyway, that just fires me up, right? You know, so all of that being taken into consideration, this is sort of the negative part of things here. We look at the sort of injury-related news, Bell. Why don't we take a look at what happened at some of these players, including why one of them isn't headed to the All-Star game?
Yeah. Unfortunately, and you can tell us more about
Oh, man.
that specific hit there because you were there to witness it. But forward Matty Beniers left the game against Vancouver with a head injury after a dirty hit from Tyler Myers. He missed games against Calgary and Columbus. I'm going to get you fired up again because I need to know like your thoughts and if you saw the hit as it happened and why nothing was done about it.
Yeah, well, so the NHL has had a couple incidences with Seattle where a player of ours gets injured and we don't see a resulting action. It happened earlier in the season. I believe it was against Florida. Pardon me, the Florida Panthers. I almost said Washington. Where Justin Schultz went into the boards hard on a hit that was just unsanctioned. It was away from the puck. This one was just absolutely egregious. Tyler Myers is about 6'8" as a defenseman for Vancouver. The puck was away from them. The play was away from both Myers and Beniers. And it was funny because there technically was a hit leading up to it by Beniers, but it was, if you look at the replay, it wasn't anything. Matty just kind of like, it's like if I jumped into you jokingly for like a chest bump or something. It was very weak, right? And so as a result, I don't know if Myers just didn't like the guy or what, but Myers comes back. Beniers is in the high slot all alone, and he just completely decked. And again, Myers is 6'8". Matty's around 6'1", 2", and Beniers isn't even looking at him. So he gets blindsided by the hit and completely flies. And I mean, this might be really hard to hear, but his head bounced, like it legitimately bounced off the ice. And normally Matty, anytime he gets hit, look for this through the course of the season, like later on when he's back. But if he ever gets hit hard, he always bounces up immediately. He always gets right back up and gets back into the play. He was very slow moving, getting back into the play. And that was kind of the first indicator, like, hey, something might be wrong. So yeah, that was really hard to see with Matty because, head injuries are always a scary thing. We know that from the course of all these sports, but you just hope that he's going to be all right, and that's why it was announced today. We'll just get this out of the way now.
Yeah.
He's been announced as out for the All-Star game. Las Vegas's Chandler Stevenson will replace the rookie, which is a little bit odd because the NHL has made it such a big deal for every team to have representation at the All-Star game. And yet you give Vegas another All-Star and Seattle doesn't get any despite having multiple All-Star caliber players. It seems a little odd, doesn't it? As well as the fact that the NHL did not give any punishment or consequence to Tyler Myers for his hit on Beniers. Again, completely out of the play, completely unnecessary, blindsided, all of that, and resulted in a head injury. Beniers was, this last part might be more on the coaching staff than anything else, but you could also say that the league should have seen it and prevented it from happening. Beniers was out for 2 minutes and then played 3 more shifts before being pulled before the start of the third period. You talk about player safety, not only not giving Tyler Myers any punishment, but also the ability, because the NHL has spotters at these games. I don't know if you know that. The NHL has spotters at these games to see stuff like that and to prevent stuff like him getting back on the ice. And yet that still happened. So this is the failure of the league, in addition to the failure to put a Vegas player in to mean that Seattle will have no representation at the All-Star game outside of Bowie the mascot. So yeah, you get me fired up. That's that. It's just a little bit ridiculous. And Seattle's hurting right now. I've got the little thing up on me right now, but Bel, why don't we go over the other sort of injury news that we have for our Kraken?
Yeah. On the 27th, Justin Schultz was placed on IR. On the 28th, Jonas Donskoy says he had his 7th concussion at the start of the season and that he still hasn't been able to practice because of the persistent symptoms. Has had vision problems, vertigo, and headaches. So, I mean, it doesn't sound too good to me. Do you think we see him this season?
This was something I had been wondering. A lot of Kraken fans had been like, hey, Jonas Donskoy, is there proof of life? Like, I've seen him in the tunnel post game, because usually those guys, they show up and they usually watch from the press bridge if they're injured. So, I mean, he's been around. Like, I've seen him after morning skates in like workout gear. He hasn't been on the ice. I know that with this report about the concussion, he's stated concern because he said he wants to be a father. He said a functioning father for years to come.
Yes.
He's got at the skill showcase, he had his child out there on the ice with him, which was a really cute scene. He was the team captain against Team Drieger. Honestly, I don't know if it's the same scale as Tua, but I would just say, hey man, you got to focus on on your life. You know, obviously this game does a lot and it's a lot of fun and all that, and blah blah blah, but you got to prioritize your health and your family. So
Yeah.
I think it might be the end of it. It's kind of curious why Seattle hasn't put him on long-term IR, which takes his contract off of the books technically. And I mean, I wonder, I don't know if it's the same thing. I don't think it's the same thing that we saw with Mercedes Russell, where it was like these reoccurring headaches, right? But she just couldn't get
Right.
going throughout the whole
Yeah.
course of the year. So, personally, I think, I'm not going to say I'm not a doctor first and foremost, but I just out of abundance of caution, I would say it should
Time to
probably
call
be.
it.
He's had a successful career. He's spent some great time in San Jose. People were rooting for him to score. He had a struggle scoring goals last season. People rooted for him for that. Just a great guy to have around. And hey, maybe he joins the team in some sort of other role, right? But I think just for abundance of safety, it should probably be called quits.
Yeah, as you said, things are looking a little tough for Seattle. We'll move on here and wrap up our injury news and move on to some team news. On the 24th, the team recalled forward John Hayden from AHL Coachella Valley. On the 27th, they recall forward Max McCormick from AHL Coachella Valley. And on the 29th, they reassigned John Hayden and Max McCormick to Coachella Valley. The Kraken have reportedly been linked to Ryan O'Reilly in trade discussions as well. O'Reilly has scored 10 goals, has 6 assists for 16 points through 37 games played this year with the St. Louis Blues. O'Reilly wears the Captain C for St. Louis and has since 2020. On the 30th, as we mentioned, it was announced that Matty Beniers would officially miss out on the All-Star game. So very unfortunate news. It's really a damn shame. I'm sorry for my language there, but
oh no, I mean, you're not wrong, so it's really tough to see that. You'd like to see Matty in his rookie year be able to participate in that. It's unfortunate, but just to touch on the O'Reilly thing there, it's very interesting to see. I know I talked about the offensive caliber, offensive firepower that Seattle has. It's very interesting to see that they've been linked to players like Timo Meier, like Ryan O'Reilly, like Bo Horvat in trades, all offensive-minded forwards, all like talented veteran forwards that would require a decent haul. O'Reilly has 16 points through 37 games isn't like the greatest thing in the world, but I mean the fact that he wears the captaincy also might drive his price up. It's just I wouldn't guarantee that Seattle will get any of these trades done this year, but to note that Ron Francis is interested, he sees where the roster is right now and is like, all right, these guys are already into some sort of a contending space. Why don't we add to that already? Why don't we strike while the iron is hot kind of thing? So very interesting to note that. Again, I don't want to guarantee that any of these will happen. Even with posting that this O'Reilly trade, that the Seattle's been linked to his name in discussions, I want to be like, hey, just a precautionary thing. I'm not saying they're going to get him, right? Because the post we had about Meier and Horvat, both of those gained a lot of interest and a lot of like, whoa, like here he comes. And it's like, hold on.
Slow it down.
Hold on. Right. So just a note for that. But yeah, really, really sucks to see Matty not be able to participate in that. I know that would be a blast for him. And just unfortunate that the league made that decision to send a different player from a different team to the All-Star game as opposed to keeping that every player gets represented idea. So like even last year with Seattle, Jordan Eberle made it, and Seattle, I don't know if you saw the record last year, but they were last year. So I just unfortunate to see all that, but they're not bad anymore. Bel, why don't you tell me the standings and such and what's next for them?
They currently sit at a 29-15-5 record, first in the Pacific with 61 points. And looking ahead, we have a short break coming. As we've mentioned, February 4th is the NHL All-Star game. So we got to wait until I believe the 7th for some more Kraken hockey.
That is correct. And normally I'd say watch the All-Star game because Matty's in it, but he's not going to be in it. So that's frustrating as all heck.